So, check this out, people. I usually talk about women on my channel. For those who don't understand, the reason why I talk about women is because I believe that women have lost their way. There was a time when a woman acted like a woman, behaved like a woman. A woman knew her place, right? And that's not being disrespectful when I say that a woman knew her place. A man used to know his place also. There is a place for everybody. There is a place for everything. The problem is that when you say a woman lost her place, they get offended, right? Because it's okay to lose your place and think it's okay, but it's not okay to know your place. And that's the problem that I have with the issues that we deal with back home in the US. Now, today I'm going to talk about men, right? I'm going to talk about men because just like women, men have lost their way, right? It's not just women, it goes both ways. Something has happened to this generation, and every generation gets worse and worse, gets dumber and dumber. And if you don't believe me, just go back in history and see how humans have, rather than evolve, we've devolved, right? You can see it by the way the pyramids were built. We've never learned to build up. We've only learned to build down. And we still can't figure out how they did it. And so, with every generation that comes in, we become less and less intelligent. And so, today, this conversation may offend a lot of people, both women and men, right? Because we live in a time, right? And it's not much different than any other time, right? In a lot of ways. But in this way that I'm going to talk about, it is very, very different, right? Because everyone says, oh, this generation is disrespectful. This generation doesn't do this, doesn't do that. I remember when every single generation says that, right? And so I don't want to go there, but this is a fact, a 100% proven fact that in the US, men have become more and more feminine. That's a fact. And women have become more and more sexual. That's a fact. Whose fault is that? Is it society's fault or is it the parents' fault? I always blame the mother. I blame the mother because it's the mother who raises the children. It's the job of the man to be there for the mother while he's working, while he's hustling, while he's doing what he's got to do to support the family. It's the woman's job to raise the children so when they grow up, they can grow up the way both the mother and father want the kids to grow up. Instead, women want to be independent. They want someone else to raise their children. And rather than their children growing up the way they want them to with their values, the child is growing up with the babysitter's values, the nanny's values. And so we're losing our children and we're losing them to others who are raising them in the way they see fit rather than the way we see fit, right? And so you got men today, right? And I can only speak about today because I wasn't here yesterday. I wasn't here some 60 years ago, right? So I can only talk about my generation and where I live, the times I live in. And this generation of men today are a bunch of mama's boys. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault that the mother has feminized the boys and sexualized the girls. It's the mother's fault. Why is it the mother's fault? Because women tend to get with men who are not good for them. They tend to get with men who are bums, who don't work, who live with their mother, and who can't do anything for them. And it's not like the women don't know this. because they do. Most women aren't attracted to good men. They're not. They're attracted to bad boys. They are attracted to men who don't do anything, who sell drugs, who have no courtesy, no respect, because they always believe they can change him, right? And so you have these women who have children out of wedlock in bad relationships with men who have no intentions of being there. And when the man is not there, then they blame the man rather than blaming themselves for opening their legs to a man that they just met 2, 3 weeks ago. And a lot of these men that the women get with are irresponsible because of their mothers, because rather than a woman getting with a man who is going to be there, who's going to be a father to her children, she doesn't want that. She wants independence. And when you choose independence over your family, you're going to lose your family. It's just that simple. You're going to lose them to the streets. You're going to lose them to someone else. It's just life, right? And so you have these women who get with men who are irresponsible, who live with their mothers. They're in their 30s, and the man lives with their mother. They're in their 30s, and the mother cooks for them. She does their laundry. She serves them. She feeds them. He don't got a job. He don't provide for the family. And he sits around watching TV all day or playing video games all day. And the mother thinks it's cute because she doesn't want to be alone for the rest of her life. And so she has to treat her son, a grown ass man, like she would her husband, but she won't do that for her husband. Because most women won't. Though I can only speak for what I know. And that's what I've seen back home in the US, because here in the Philippines is very different. Completely different. Women cater to their men. They cater to their men. Unfortunately, the majority of women who are Filipina cater to the wrong kind of man. They cater to mama's boys who have never been independent, who don't know what it's like to make their own sandwich, who don't know what it's like to wipe their own behinds, who don't know what it's like to walk out of the house to the grocery store and pick up the groceries for their mother because their mother does everything for them. And then when they get married, they expect the wife to do for them the same thing that mama did for them. And when their wife doesn't do it, they leave. They go back home to their mother. They start talking down to their wives. They believe that the wife is not being a good wife because their mother treated them better. And that is their mother's fault for raising bums. It's that simple. Because a mother needs to know how to let her children go, especially her sons. Because one thing I've noticed here in the Philippines is that most parents treasure the boy over the girl, and it's the girl who works, it's the girl who goes to school, it's the girl who cooks, who cleans, who does everything, including support the family, while the majority of men sit at home doing nothing. And that's not to say that there aren't good Filipino men, because obviously there are. There are plenty of Filipino men who are married, who take care of their wives. I know a lot of them. But this subject is not about those men. This is about the other kind of man, okay? Because again, this subject is about the other side that I speak about, because I usually speak about women, right? And if any one of my daughters or any one of my stepdaughters decide to get married, I'm going to have a conversation with her boyfriend. And I'm going to have a conversation with her separately and together. And I'm going to let him know that he's not going to marry any of my stepdaughters to then leave them 3 years later. That's not going to fly. He's not going to do what typical men do in this country, that get married, and then after they have a baby, he abandons them, or he sits at home chilling while the wife cooks, cleans, and works and takes care of the family. Because that's a common theme here in this country. And this is why most Filipinas that are poor, especially, tend to want to date foreigners because they know that a foreigner is going to stay with them, is going to support them, is going to be a man to them, and is going to improve their livelihood. While the local men are not going to do that. And the foreigner knows that what he doesn't get back home, which is a woman who cooks, who cleans, who does the dishes, who serves him and takes care of him, he's going to get that here when he doesn't get it back home. And so they both win. You see the problem that's going on in both countries? You have women back home in the US who aren't doing their job, and then you have men here in this country who aren't doing their job. And rather than a woman saying to herself, listen, I love this man. I emotionally need him because I love him. But he ain't good for me. He doesn't have the education that I need for him to support me and my family. He doesn't have the means to do it because he was babied all his life, and now he thinks I'm going to do the same thing that his mother is doing. And I'm not doing that. Because you're not doing your sons any favors, ladies. When you baby a grown-ass man, what you're doing is setting him up for failure. He's going to fail as a father, as a husband. He's not going to be able to do the things that he needs to do because you babied him all his life. And so a lot of these Filipina women tend to get with these men who can't do anything for them. And then in the end, they're trapped. They're trapped because they married him. Now he's got a family with someone else. This is a typical thing. I'm not just talking about something I don't know, because this is typical here in the Philippines where a woman is married and her husband has a family with someone else and didn't stay. And it's always the same thing. He didn't work. He didn't want to work. He didn't provide. When his mother came over, she ran everything. She controlled everything. She babied him. She served him. That just goes to show what your life is going to be like, ladies, if you marry a mama's boy. And so it is your fault if you put yourself in that situation. And if you don't teach your daughters to choose the man that's right for her, not based on her feelings, but based on reality. I'll give you a perfect example. My daughter back home in the US, when she was a teenager back in high school, was dating this kid, right? And they were so good together. I loved them as a couple. He was so sweet to my daughter. Every time I saw them, he was holding her hand. When they watched TV, my daughter would have her head on his shoulder. It was just so sweet seeing how affectionate they were together, right? And one day I come home and her mother says to me, Toby's crying. And I said, why? And she said, because she broke up with so-and-so. And I said, why? And she said, because he's not going to school. He's not going to school. And because he's not going to school, he's not going to be able to provide for her. He's not going to be the man that she needs him to be because she goes to school. She has goals in life. And if she has goals in life and he doesn't, there's going to be an imbalance. And she's going to have to carry the family. And so she had to make a choice based on reality, not fairy tales, not love and emotion that don't make no sense. Because love doesn't pay the bills. A good job pays the bills. And a man who doesn't go to school, a man who doesn't hold a job shows irresponsibility. It shows that he has no structure, no discipline, because it takes discipline to go to school every day, especially when you can't, when you ain't got it and you got to do it anyway, when you don't want to. It takes discipline. And when you marry a man who has school, college, especially in this country, in the Philippines, it shows discipline. And even that doesn't guarantee that he's going to be a good husband. What guarantees that he's going to be a good husband is whether or not his mother is raising a feminine man who relies on his mother. There's nothing wrong with your mother serving you. There's nothing wrong with a mother taking care of her son, but when a man in his 30s comes home from work and you're in bed sleeping and you got to get up to serve him, there's a problem because he should be able to fix his own sandwich. And a grown-ass man shouldn't be taken care of by his mother. He should be taking care of his mother. So there's a difference between a man who lives with his mother and a mother who lives with her son. Big difference. Because if a mother lives with her son, that means he's providing for his mother and not the other way around. Because if a mother's providing for a grown man in his 30s and you want to marry him, you're marrying trouble. You're marrying problems. And it's not his fault, it's your fault. Because just like my daughter had to make an intelligent choice based on reality, you women have to do the same. Now, I was impressed with my daughter because I would have never, ever thought of something like that. And I didn't graduate from high school. Hell, I didn't even make it there. But the era in which I grew up, men were men. We knew how to work. I was working from the age of 13. I know how to sew. I know how to knit. I can wash my own clothes. I cook. I clean. I raised 4 daughters. Half the time, less than half the time, a quarter of the time, I raised my daughters by myself, 3 of them, while the majority of the time, my ex-wife raised them. And my youngest daughter, I raised full-time, driving her to school every morning, going to work, then taking a break from work to pick her up from school, dropping her off at home, and then going back to work. And she left my house at age 23 with a baby of her own and a family of her own. And I always taught her that if you find a man, a good man, who works and who's willing to support you, and you don't have to work, but raise your own children, then that's the kind of man you need to be with, because you don't need a man where you have to carry half the weight and have someone else raise your daughter or your son, a babysitter, a daycare, so that they can raise your children the way they see fit, rather than you raising your children the way you see fit. And that is the problem that's going on today. Parents have other people raising their children. And it is not the job of someone else to raise a child that a woman gave birth to. It's not anybody else's responsibility. My wife at the time hated the kind of man I was when it came to my daughters because I was paranoid. I didn't allow anyone to babysit my daughters except for her mother. That was it. She didn't work because I didn't want her to work. I provided everything. She didn't need to work. I didn't want her to work because we had children. And it's nobody else's job to raise our children but hers. And so that was her full-time job. And my children turned out to be incredible women, all of them. And I have 4 girls who are all married with children of their own. And they homeschool their children. 3 of the 4 of my daughters homeschool their children because they want their children to grow up the way they want them to grow up, especially the boys, where in this age, boys are growing up to be feminine. We don't have any men left. The women are more masculine than men, and the men are more feminine. This is why the women are carrying most of the weight in the family. And that's the woman's fault. It's all on the woman who she chooses as a partner. It's not on the man. You see, it's not men who are marrying women who are more responsible than they are, who work, who have a college degree, who have responsibilities. It's women who are marrying bums who don't work, who live with their mother, who have no education and no job. You see the difference? Because a man doesn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to marry this woman because she got everything. Because in the end, it's up to the woman to marry him. And it's funny how a woman falls in love with a man who has nothing and she wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to marry this man because I love him. Rather than just saying, hey, listen, I love this man. I want to be with him, but I'm not going to commit because he can't commit to me. And he can't commit to me because he has no education, he has no job, and he's a mama's boy. And I'm not going to play mother to a grown man. And if you don't break that cycle, ladies, and you don't raise your boys to be men, you're only going to raise them to fail in life. They are going to fail their wives. They are going to fail their children. They are going to fail their families. And it's on the mother. It's on the mother. Because in the end, you hold the key. You hold your key to what's going on between your thighs. You hold the key to say yes or no when a man wants to marry you. It's always been a woman's choice. Always. And it will always be. And if you don't choose the right man, then the wrong man is going to choose you, and then you're going to accept him. It's not a man's fault if he's been babied all his life and treated feminine because his mother wants to wipe his behind when he's 12 years old. Because I've seen that happen. I've seen it. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking because I know what I'm talking about. I'm a man. I have experience in life. And so women are raising children to fail because then these boys, when they become men, are going to expect the same things from their wives. They're going to become a burden to their wives, to their children. And the woman is going to suffer. And so if women, especially Filipina women who are amazing women, as far as I'm concerned, amazing women. I've never seen women like a Filipina, ever. Who work, who cook, who clean, who take care of their children, who do everything, every single thing, more than what a man does. And that's your fault, ladies. It's a good trait because it's impressive. It's something that a man can look at and say, wow, this woman is amazing. But if you're not careful, you're going to pick the wrong man and he's going to take advantage of that. He's going to take advantage of that. It's your choice. In the end, you have to say to him, listen, you're sleeping in my house. You have to pay half the bills. If not, at least pay the rent. You have to take out the trash. It's not my job to do that. I have children I'm raising. I can't raise you also. I can't feed you too. You need to bring something to the table. Instead, women are marrying men who they shouldn't be married, who are unequally yoked because she's more man than he is. He relies on his mother and she relies on herself. And the problem is that women are with men who are constantly picking up their phone and calling their mother. There's nothing wrong with calling mama and saying, hi, ma, how you doing? Do you need anything? And stopping by to make sure your mother's okay. But there's a difference between that and calling your mother to cook for you, to clean for you because you're hungry, because you don't got no money for cigarettes, for beer. You see the difference, ladies? And so when you pick these men, it's nobody else's fault but yours. And this is something that completely just, it's like I'm on Mars, right? Because I've never seen this before. I've never seen women who are so amazing. And I've never seen those same women who choose men who are beneath them. It's just that simple. And I'm a man, so I'm saying it like that. Because a lot of Filipina women choose men who are beneath them. And a man should be above a woman because it's a man's job to be the strength to push the family forward, the strength to hold his wife down when things are hard and make her feel strong. And if the woman is stronger than the man, then there's a problem because she has no support system. And if the woman is stronger than the man, it means that that man needs his mother because his mother's been babying him all his life. What men have to do is teach the woman how to be a woman, to teach their daughters how to be ladies and how to be women and how to pick the right man. And the problem is that parents don't talk to their children. All they do is they put a plate of food on the table, walk away, and they think they're doing their job because they put food on the table. There's more to that than raising children. You got a dog? There are people who treat their dogs better than they do their own children. They train their dog to sit, to come, to piss, and they're willing to pick up the dog's shit outside on the street, but they're not willing to take care of their own children. If you can train your dog, and if you can pick up your dog's shit off the street, then you can train your children and teach the women, the girls to be women and the boys to be men. Because there's going to be accountability to the father and the mother when it comes to those kids. There's going to be accountability. Watch, people. In this world or in the next world, there's going to be accountability. And it's easy for you to call on God when you think you need him, but when your children call on you, where you at? Where you at? When your son is hungry or when your son needs a roof over his head and the rent hasn't been paid in 3 months and your wife has to go to work every day doing work that she shouldn't be doing because you're too lazy to do it, because you were raised by a mother who babied you and you don't know how to be a man. So I'm telling you this. So hopefully if you're watching this video, you can get the advice that your mother never gave you. And why do I say the advice that your mother never gave you? Because most of the time, women are single parents. It doesn't matter which part of the world you live in. I don't care if you're in America, Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, or the Philippines. It's the same thing everywhere. Women fall in love. They allow a man in just because they love him, and they don't vet him. They don't do the research on him. They don't observe him. They don't give him time so that they can see what kind of a man he is and what kind of a man he's going to become in time, because people don't change. You just get to know them. And when you get to know this man, he may not be the man you want or need. And women are too quick to marry. They're too quick to fall in love. And they're too quick to give it up to any man that they may feel is cute or it's got a pretty smile, a nice smile. They're easily moved because of their emotions rather than making intelligent choices. And this is why there are so many women who are single mothers who work while the man that she had slept with and got her pregnant is nowhere to be found. And if he is somewhere to be found, like across the street, he's living with another woman directly across the street, raising her children, and the child that he initially had doesn't even know who he is. He or she knows that's her father or his father, but they don't communicate. They don't talk because he could care less. Whose fault is that? Is it his fault? You instruct the child in his ways, and when he is older, he will not depart. And it's unfortunate that women are raising bums. They're raising bums. My mother was not a very good parent. She wasn't a very good parent. But because I grew up in an age where men were men, those I surrounded myself with knew how to give me advice. I had examples of what a man was, and I could say, I want to be like him. I want to dress like him. I want to walk like him. I want to have the things he has. I don't ever want to treat a woman the way another man treats a woman if he doesn't know how to treat her. I don't want to be like him, I used to say. I want to be like this guy who's kind and who's gentle. See, I had something to look at, to see, and that I could copy. I can take the good and leave the bad, but unfortunately, the majority of men these days have one trait, and there's no balance. And so they become a burden to their wives and to their mothers, who at a very old age are still catering to these men, old men, in their 40s and 50s who live with their mother and can provide for their wives or their mother. And so I wanted to make this video because anybody that knows me and follows me and watches my videos know how I speak about women, how women have lost their way, but it's not much different from men. Men have lost their way. Society is making it more and more difficult for a man to be a man, for a man to want to be a man. They want to feminize men, make us believe that it's okay to cry, that it's okay to be sensitive. There's nothing wrong with being sensitive. You don't have to teach a man that. That's life. We're not animals. Men cry. You don't have to teach us that. What you do have to teach a man is to be strong. You have to teach a man to be strong. You don't have to teach a man to be weak. And society these days want men to be weak. This is why women are carrying the weight. This is why the majority of women are single mothers. Rather than raising men, they're raising boys or feminine men. It's up to the parents to teach the man. It's up to the parent to tell the man, listen, this is what you need to be for your wife. Don't teach a man that he needs to sit back and have his wife treat him the way mommy treats him. You're setting him up for failure, ladies. You need to let go of your men. Mothers need to let go of their boys when they hit a certain age and start talking to them like they're talking to men. Reminding them that mama is not always going to be there. Reminding them that they need to get to the point where if they're going to live in mama's house, that they have to start paying the bills. Because when you do that, you're teaching him what to expect in the real world so that he's able to take care of himself and his family. Instead, women are teaching their boys to fail because they're teaching them that they don't need to have responsibilities when they're around mama. And so when they're with their wives, they expect their wives to be the same like their mother. And they start criticizing them, their wives, because my mother always warmed up my food. How about you use a microwave, my man? How about you not become a burden to your wife and make it easier for her and compliment her when she serves you food, whether you like it or not? Thank you, sweetheart, for taking the effort, for making the effort to cook. Thank you, sweetheart, for waking me up in the morning. Thank you, sweetheart, for reminding me that I have something to do. Instead, we expect it and think that it's the job of the woman to do all of these things because mama did it. You're mama's boy. And your mother set you up for failure, and this is why you failed in marriage, you failed as a father, and you failed as a man. And so now you have to retrain yourself so that you can get rid of that old training and retrain your brain so that you can learn to be a man and successful in life, because you're never going to be successful depending on your mother. No man who depends on his mother is ever going to be successful. Ever.